Boo. Scared you. Didn't really though, that was a lie. Horror is a tricky thing to pull off. Even if you fill out the checklist for all the things you think you need in your story in order to make it scary, there's always a good chance this aesthetically scary story of yours won't be in the slightest bit terrifying. Jujutsu Kaisen falls victim to this. Aesthetically speaking, it could just simply be described as spooky. The scenes often happen at night, there's horrific monsters, there's blood, murder, all that great slasher steez. But strangely, the series, whilst incredible, is completely and utterly unterrifying. And in this video I want to highlight the exact reasons as to why Jujutsu Kaisen doesn't fit under the umbrella of the horror genre, despite it being composed of entirely horror-based elements. And I'm not saying this to present myself as like some super macho man that doesn't get scared at anything. I still get absolutely terrified at the cave noises in Minecraft. I'm not moist, dead on the inside critical.
What are you doing in my home?
My level of fear when consuming Jujutsu Kaisen is a resounding 0, but that isn't because of me, it's because of the story. Halloween is my favourite holiday where instead of going to parties and making friends, I eat copious amounts of junk and watch Over the Garden Wall again and again and again. But when I was a kid, I actually had a life. Every Halloween I would dress up in a spooky costume and wander around the twilit streets, acquiring sour sweets behind each door I knocked upon. My sweet garnering strategy is simple. I walk up to a house, knock repeatedly and annoyingly till my lazy neighbours get off their asses, put on their fake smile, and perform their God-given duty of giving some middle-class white kid free food. On these confectionery prowls, I of course came across many other trick-or-treaters, people dressed up as monstrous beings designed to scare people. You have to understand, I'm easy to frighten, but as a child wandering around the streets at the dead of night, surrounded by people dressed as literal monsters, I felt absolutely no fear at all. Because why would I? The other kids dressed up in monster costumes weren't really monsters, were they? They were just normal fellas. Jujutsu Kaisen's monsters aren't really monsters, they're just living Halloween costumes. In fact, some of you degenerates think these mass murderers are hot. If Mahito was on Epstein's flight list, you'd still make thirst trap edits of him, wouldn't you, you lousy degenerate? Maybe the real monster is man. Jujutsu Kaisen's monsters are known as curses. They are powerful, they have horrific forms, mostly, and like to slaughter people by the thousands. Another fun fact is that they aren't in the least bit terrifying, for two very important reasons. The first big reason is that they aren't dangerous. Unlike in most horror-based media, the good guys in Jujutsu Kaisen are way stronger than the curses they face, and in fact the grading system they have for this unique like anime shonen magic system actually really highlights this fact. So each grade on this chart is a power level. Think Dragon Ball, but instead, lower number equals stronger fella. As you can see, the grading for sorcerers is always slightly higher than the curses, because say, a grade 1 sorcerer is expected to be able to handle a grade 1 threat, rather than the conflict being a 50-50 coin flip on who actually wins. They're meant to be able to handle it really easily. Whilst the series does focus on conflicts where the outcome isn't particularly certain, these sorcerers are, well, they are shonen protagonists. They learn a lesson, they get stronger, and they beat up the bad guy. And the elephant in the room here is Gojo Satoru, who annihilates every poor curse that just happens to be written within a 50-mile radius of him. It's absolutely insane how much more powerful that Gojo is compared to the vast majority of the characters in the series. You really don't get to see anyone nearly on his level until you're at least 100 or so chapters in. And even then, man's got hands. Unlike in most horror-based media where the monsters clearly have the strength advantage, in Jujutsu Kaisen the humans do, the protagonists do, the good guys. Which honestly I think is completely based. If monsters actually exist in real life, they are posers with 0 Twitter followers that spend their days hiding under children's beds to scare minors. Absolute lousy, no-job degenerates. It's very satisfying to watch monsters get their shit absolutely rocked. It's like we took the concept of human beings being so small and afraid and weak within this universe, and we went to the nihilistic, dreary horror writers that say this stuff, and we looked them in the eyes and we said, if monsters were real, we'd kick the shit out of them. I think what Jujutsu Kaisen does is absolutely wonderful, but if the monsters in your story have a power disadvantage that's quite major, it's very hard to fear them. Like, compare a curse to an actual horror movie monster. Let's look at the modern spooky movie Annihilation. The plot is basically, there's this weird Bermuda Triangle section of land that suddenly appears. Inside it there's a bunch of wacky, dangerous and paranormal stuff happening, so the government sends teams of explorers in to learn about it. Natalie Portman leads the latest team, and one of the members gets affected by the magical mumbo-jumbo insanity of this overly saturated Lovecraftian hellscape, so she goes crazy, ties the others up, and is threatening to kill them, as you do. Kinda scary stuff, right? But then, this happens. Oh boy, these characters are confident. Natalie Portman is like a retired army ranger or something, but that is a demon bear, sweet Jesus. The protags are entirely physically outmatched, thus the tension is drawn from the question, how in the name of God will they survive this? Compare this to Jujutsu Kaisen, where the question is never, oh my god, how's he going to survive this one? It's more like, I wonder how he's going to beat the ever-loving shit out of this monster. All the good guys in the series are every bit as powerful, and you know what, even more powerful than the monsters that they face. But even if the curses were stronger than the heroes, funnily enough, I don't think it would really change much. The series is shonen, and even for a shonen, its pacing is lightning fast. There's not very much downtime. There isn't any fleshing out really of the characters or the world building. So it's all just action story, action story, action story with no room to breathe. Even in an extremely action-orientated show like Dragon Ball, Goku still gets time to make babies and hang out with Krillin. So it's really hard to feel a sense of danger when a monster is about to kill someone, but you really don't care if the character lives or dies. And don't get me wrong, I do really like the characters in Jujutsu Kaisen. They're very fun, they have really cool powers, I absolutely love their designs. But when the story is entirely focused on action and nothing but action, I'm still pretty satisfied as long as the action continues. Like later in the manga, I won't spoil the manga for the anime only fans, but some of my favourite characters start getting eviscerated, and to be honest, I never really cared, because the action kept coming, and it still keeps coming, and it won't stop coming, and they don't stop coming, and they don't stop coming, and they don't stop. So curses don't really invoke any sense of danger. That's point one. Point two is that we know way too much about curses. Curses have a lot of similarities between eldritch beings you find in Lovecraftian horror stories and slasher movies and Frankenstein, all that good spooky stuff. They share a lot of visual similarities, but to be honest, it's all really quite surface level. A curse's abilities can be strange and horrific and deadly and powerful, but they can be categorized. And therein lies the problem. Take a Lovecraftian monstrosity like Cthulhu. What makes it scary is that it represents the unknown. Cthulhu has a lot of lore surrounding it, but we don't actually know where the fuck this monstrosity comes from, why it does what it does, what it plans to actually do. We don't know what the full extent of its terribly gargantuan capabilities actually are. Cthulhu is a horrific alien entity with powers far beyond our own, and it is a complete and utter unknown, and that is very concerning. But a curse, even if it is really powerful, we kind of know the limit of its power, what its specific powers actually are, and what the limits of all of its abilities are. We know exactly what it can do. We also know where it comes from. Curses are born from lingering negative emotions and like ideas and concepts that are like famous in like human imagination, like the nine-tailed fox, stuff like that. And so there's no real mystery to them. We know what they are, we know what they want, they're fucking murderers, and we know where they came from, what they're capable of. We just know everything. I know more about curses than I do in my own family. And of course we know our sorcerer buddies can beat the ever-loving shit out of them. So there you have it, basically. Jujutsu Kaisen isn't scary because of the lack of danger and the surplus of certainty. I don't think the series was trying to be a full like horror. I think it's more of like a thriller action thing. But I still think it is interesting to point out the line that separates aesthetically spooky and actual genuine horror, because I think a lot of series that do try to become horror, do try to have these scary elements, completely fail because they only go surface deep. And if you are like a writer and you're interested in writing like horror stuff, I hope this video gave you some ideas or helped you out a little. And Jujutsu Kaisen is a great action series. I do really like it. I didn't mean to like bash it that much, but I was always a bit disappointed that the horror elements were a little too much surface level for my liking. I believe that's probably why I made this video. I want more spooky stuff. Gosh darn it. Brah. So I started reading Stephen King, and now my horror desires are satiated. This is happy ending. Goodbye. Coming and they don't stop 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 coming and they don't